Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX welcoming you to another live webinar. This is going to be episode 240, Better Research Note Taking. Remember, you can join our online communities and see lots of other things you can do with us at deltacx.com/links. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, hit bells, hit likes, comments, the usual thing. Check our events calendar for future stuff, cxcc.to/events. And of course, many thanks to the people in our Patreon, both the free and paid levels. We just got our 300th Patreon member, and we have about a third who are paid, so you are absolutely welcome to join free. It's the best way to get updated Delta CX multiverse stuff without algorithms standing in our way. So I'm going to bring in our super special guest today on the note-taking. Hi, Ana Lucia. And remember, questions are welcome, comments are welcome, agreements, disagreements. This is audience participation. But you probably know and love this person, and I just got to watch them play air tambourine to our theme song. The always fantastic Kelene Lee, who was previously on our show during the pandemic. What?
There's supposed to be a drum set. It's not tambourine.
Oh, that was a drum. Oh, okay, so I couldn't tell if it was like a ride cymbal or if you were doing a tambourine, but it was very effective. And so, welcome, Kelene. Before we get started, tell people who the heck you are.
Hi, everyone. I am Kelene. I have been a UX researcher for over 2 years now. Working with Deb a lot, and currently also working with Deb at Arizona State University. My contract is ending at the end of this month, so
hire her.
I'm cool to work with.
That's right. Kelene was in my apprentice program in what, 2022?
No, 2021.
Wow, time is flying. And then you did some real projects with me, so recommended A++. So that having been said, hi, Andre. Kelene and I have certainly had the opportunity to do some studies together, and at ASU lately, we've been trying and experimenting with different ways to take notes, and so Kelene and I wanted to do a little role-playing / play acting and show you some different ways that we take notes and kind of talk about the pros and cons of each of them so that you can maybe make some changes to the way you take notes, whether you're the moderator of a session or an observer or note taker. Kelene, anything you want to add before we start doing some of our role playing?
Live from Chicago, it's Wednesday afternoon.
She was threatening to do that. I'm glad she followed through. Sorry, it was a little loud. I'll have to turn down your microphone now that you are yelling. Okay.
I will not be yelling questions later.
Right. We will try not to shout the answers to your questions. Looks like my microphone's a little loud also. I'll turn that down. So we're going to show you 3 different note-taking strategies. The first one is my note-taking strategy, which let me first give you the disclaimer of I don't recommend you do this. And that was don't with a T. My style of note-taking is, let me say this again, not recommended, and especially not recommended for people who are more junior or learning or starting out. And when you see what my note-taking style is, I think this will make a lot of sense as to why not. So what Kelene and I are going to do today in our role-playing is we've prepared 3 sample interview questions, and we're going to ask the same questions to each other every time we do the role-playing, and we're going to share screens and we're going to let you watch how we take notes. So let me know if I can see the questions. Let me know if you have questions. What I'm going to do is start the screen share, and I'm going to pull up a Google Doc that we prepared. Here it is, note-taking with Kelene. Oh, why is this so weird looking? Okay, here we go. Page break. Why is it doing that? I want to see normal pages. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that, but let's see. Hopefully everybody... Okay, good. You can see my screen. I won't see Kelene. I'm looking at my own screen. You can see a little bit of us over here. and the chat room. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take notes while she speaks. And we are going to talk about, we're going to pretend that we're in the middle of an interview about how Kayleen was recently shopping for a sofa. So, Kayleen, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. I can make it normal pages.
Oh, okay. That's okay. I just didn't want
It
people to
takes
see
like
some of the crap we had north of this, but that's totally fine. We're all friends here. We trust the Delta CX community. Hey, where'd my crap go? Okay, great. Here it is. So, this is where I'm going to be taking my notes. So, Kayleen, let's imagine we're in a session. You're welcome to give short, medium, long answers, and I'm just going to take notes in my style, which I call almost transcription. So Kayleen, you were telling me that you were recently shopping for a sofa. What triggered you to shop for a sofa?
my sofa sucks.
Okay, and can you tell
It's
me more about that? What's going on with your sofa?
it's covered in my hair. It's like just it's not very supportive anymore. Um, I my fiance Nick does not want to. He complains that it's uncomfortable to sit on after a long period of time. Um, it's just it's also like kind of fraying at the corners because my cats are cats. I have to cover it with blankets, and it's frustrating me.
Okay,
I
got
want a
it. So
new
it sounds like,
sofa.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just being silly. I said I want a new sofa.
Got it. Okay, so thinking about some of the process that you've been going through to shop for your sofa, can you tell me about some of that shopping process and each step you took in order?
Ooh, that's interesting you say that because I don't think of it as an order.
Okay, no
It's
problem. How
like
do you think of it?
let me let me Google and try to figure out like what options are out there. And the, what's frustrating about the process is that I never really know if of the any of what I see is actually any good. Because what's when you Google, there are certain brands that show up at the very top of the search results, and then you search that brand on Reddit, and there are people complaining about it, you know, being unusable after 2 years. And it's like, wow, are any of the positive reviews that you see on their site even real anymore? And I just get full of like, okay, what is a sofa made of? And eh, okay, it's a frame, and frames can be, made of different materials. They could be tied by hand. And the cushions can be made of foams of various densities. And, you know, if you want your sofa to last a certain number of years, the density should be this high. And then when you go look at the product description, they don't always tell you what density foam the cushions are made of. So I just maybe I should try less and just see what looks nice in the pictures and just get that. But I tend to really research the heck out of my purchases, especially ones that are really expensive. I guess it makes sense that I'm a researcher as in my job.
Yeah, so I can see you're really putting the research life into research springs to life when you are looking for your sofa. And as you were moving around different sites or sources, how did you decide which site or source you could trust?
Well, I always look for negative reviews, um, because those tend to be reviews with pictures. Those tend to be like more insightful or informative. I also find that like Reddit is really good for talking to real people or seeing real people talk about their sofas as opposed to like the reviews that are actually on like a reviews on like the brand's website, because you just see, assuming that they're not lying on the internet, you'll see people like, hey, I make furniture for a living, um, and this has been my experience, and then you can actually see um, people. You might see two furniture makers like disagree on something, and that can be like really helpful um, when deciding like, hey, does foam density matter? Um, does it matter if the frame is hand tied? Um,
And how do you decide which of those people do you trust?
uh, it's so hard to say because they might not know what they're talking about. Um, I don't know, I think is the honest answer. Um, I hope that if a lot of people seem to be agreeing with that person, then it is a sign of trustworthiness. But I'm not an expert. So.
Okay, I understand. Thank you so much for being part of my study.
You're welcome.
And
Where's my paper?
scene. Oh, I don't have my clapboard ready today. Um, okay, so that was one style of note taking. Let's talk about that a little bit. Thank you. Andre says bravo. Yes, very well done. Kayleen, you're a little blurry and mysterious. You might have to
My
do one of
camera
these.
is very silly.
There you
There we
go.
go.
I
That's
hope you
better.
find the sofa of your dreams, of course. So, obviously, we can talk
Happen.
about the pros and cons of my note taking style. The pros are that I've captured a lot of what she has said. I would only need to go back to a transcription or a video sometimes I'll put hashtag quote to try to see exactly what she said if I feel like I'm only half capturing it in my typing. So the pros are that it's all there. It's an especially good style if you have someone who refuses to be recorded. We've had a few people say, I don't want to be recorded. Um, yeah, Ana Lucia says there wasn't a rapport. Yeah, to me, I could have developed that, but I also didn't want to interrupt her because I felt like she was giving a lot of good information. And so it wasn't that I was purposefully not connecting with her or doing the rapport thing. It was more that I didn't want to interrupt her because I felt like she was giving a lot of good information. But Ana Lucia does raise a good point that we do run the risk, and this is why it can be a con, that if we are very involved in the note taking and typing and thinking about what we want to put in our notes, especially where we are the moderator, then you do run the risk that you are more disconnected. Maybe you're not making camera eye contact or personal eye contact because you're looking at your typing or looking at a screen, which I was doing a lot more of than I normally do because Kayleen has watched me do a lot of sessions and she'll know that I'm usually better at camera eye contact even when I'm doing notes like that. But yes, an obvious con is you may be a little bit more absorbed in your own note taking. How do you do, Valentine? So thank you. Andre says, "Yeah, that's my greatest fear: taking notes." And again, if you are recording it, then you can always go back later and take your notes by rewatching the session or reading a transcript. But we're kind of giving some examples today of some of our note taking styles for better or worse. So again, my style is not recommended because it has some of the cons we've talked about. It's got other cons, which are if you are not a fast typer, this really doesn't work. If you're not an accurate typer, this really doesn't work. If you can't hear one thing and type something else, this also doesn't work. And then hypothetically, because we get transcriptions and live transcriptions and AI transcriptions. And we're going to show you that later today, as that's going to be our third adventure together in our fake note taking things here. Do we really need my almost transcription style? Because we'll have a transcript. Serena says, is it always useful for an in-person interview? Users tend to change their perceptions. They say something and they mean something else. Well, that is going to be up to the question and the answer. We're going to have to figure out what somebody meant without putting in our own perceptions or biases. Today, we're talking more about the note taking. And as you can see, my note taking style was just to try to note down anything that Kelene was saying that I thought would be important or interesting later. Now, sometimes I read my own notes later and I go, oh, wow, there's so much here, and a lot of it really doesn't matter. I've overtaken notes. But again, sometimes I'm doing that for my own reasons. Like sometimes I'm not recording these, and I still want to try to capture as much of what was said and the spirit of what was said. So again, if you're not the moderator, type as much as you like. But you might miss some things. If you are the moderator, I don't recommend that note-taking style because you are probably going to miss a lot more, and you might not make the connection and the rapport that you'd like to make with your subject. Kelene, anything else you want to add about what you think might be pros and cons of that style?
Um, Honestly, like, in terms of that particular note-taking style, like whatever works for the particular researcher is whatever you're comfortable with is what you should do. Because note-taking is as note-taking and moderating is such a like on the fly, like you really got to focus. So just do what you're comfortable with. I personally don't recommend taking notes on everything, especially if what they're saying starts to veer off track of the research goals and what you're looking to hear. If it's irrelevant, don't type any of it. Like it's not going to help you later. So I guess it's. I think Deb's note taking style is especially effective if you can't record. And Deb, you said this already, but I have not been in a situation where I could not record and I had to only rely on my notes. That would be I would want Deb on that call.
We've had that happen. And so yes, in that case I am pseudo transcriptionist. I'm not getting every word, but I'm getting most of the words. So we would be able to uh piece together a lot of the conversation, but I can't really capture some of the intonation. And if I want to capture the intonation, I'm going to have to use markers like more question marks when Kaylene's doing up talk or sounds unsure about something. Or I'll have to use Kaylene and I both have music degrees. I'll need neumes. I will need, some sort of visual markers to indicate intonation. Ana Lucia says, with in-person interviews, would you use a notebook or a laptop? I personally use a laptop, so there aren't any screens between us since they may be perceived as a barrier. Um, I'm definitely, since I'm a heavy typer and my handwriting is awful, I would definitely be a laptop typer. And a lot of people know I'm wild about ergonomic keyboards. So this is my keyboard and it's on a wild angle and it's split. So I'm definitely ergonomic keyboard person. What about you, Kayleen? If you were live in person with someone, do you think you would do handwritten notes or laptop typing or something else?
Do I have to take notes in this scenario?
I'll come take notes for you. Don't worry.
I definitely record it and try to take as little notes as possible, just so it doesn't feel like I'm, you know, um, distracted, like so that the participant doesn't think I'm distracted. Note taking and facilitating at the same time is transparently it's not my strength.
It's difficult for everybody.
Definitely look I definitely look like not happy because I'm like really focused. and that could really throw a participant off. I would probably keep a notebook and a pen, and I'd only note something that maybe the participant said that I need to like circle back to, and I'd
Got it.
record it, but I'd use the notebook to just remind myself, like, hey, make sure you bring this up
Here, I'm gonna
because
try. I'm gonna try answering that while taking notes on myself. Let's see if I can do it. Um, this is one reason why I tend to take notes by mostly summarizing. See, it's a little hard to talk and take notes at the same time. See, so again, it's much better when I'm not talking. It's really hard to talk and take notes at the same time. I could try to do it. I've done it before. It's not pretty. So Kayleen, you ready to go for our second version of this?
Sure.
Okay, so the second version of this will be Kayleen is going to take notes in a spreadsheet while she asks me the same questions about a shopping experience I recently had. I'm going to be talking not about a sofa, since I have a sofa. I was shopping for a kind of portable battery that we use from time to time here at our house, especially when we go out in our camper. And the portable battery allows us to plug in our computers and other stuff and run off that battery so we're not draining our camper battery. Yeah. So Ana Lucia, I was shopping to replace the evil EcoFlow, which we will cover in the first question. So Kayleen will ask me the same questions you just heard me asking her, except I'm going to be telling my story about a recent shopping experience, and she's going to be taking notes. But again, in this case she's playing the moderator and the note taker. So I think in real life Kayleen might be more comfortable only doing one of those at a time, and here we're pretending she's doing both. So we're going to give her a little extra time. How's that?
A little extra help.
A little extra love. All
I'm
right,
sorry.
so back to here. So this is the spreadsheet that Kayleen has prepared. I'm looking at the screen, so I don't see her face or me. I just see, yeah, I just see, everybody sees the spreadsheet, right, Kayleen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So spreadsheet and chat room. Okay, so I'm going to try to ignore what's on the screen and I'm just going to give you an answer. So, hi.
Hello. Before I ask the question, I just want to make sure I go over this spreadsheet.
Okay, great
It's
idea.
every column is a question, every row is a participant, and that's basically it. I made the cells bigger, and I went into the text wrapping and made it wrap instead of like overflow or clip. So
Good
that way you
choice.
can take paragraph notes. Um, yeah. Okay. All right, Deb. So, what triggered you to shop for this item?
Yeah, so we already owned one of these existing batteries, and the problem was it recently overheated itself, and according to the manufacturer, that killed it. It's now unusable. And the manufacturer told us not to use it, but that they also wouldn't fix or replace it. And so that was disappointing. So we decided to shop for a competitor. By the way, I'm not seeing your notes coming up on my screen as I hear you typing, but I don't see them. Do you,
Yeah, that is something that I noticed with Google Sheets. It will not save, it will not display to another person as a collaborator what is being typed until I hit enter in the cell and I leave that cell.
okay, got it. So do you want me to keep sharing my screen or should do you want to share your screen so people can see you typing?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll switch
There
you
we
share
are.
your screen. You ready?
I hadn't finished typing what you were saying. Hold on.
It's all right. I can say it
Shopping for
again.
competitor. Okay, I'm caught up now.
Okay.
Was that the whole question? Was that your answer to the whole question?
Yeah, let's
Or,
say that's my answer for the question. Yeah, infinite screen. There's like trees and
yes.
there's like itself. There's also like I don't know why, but you've also got the vmix there. Can you maybe maximize your Excel?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like don't leave vmix, but yeah, I think that's going to be better. Thanks. Yeah, screen in
Okay.
a
Hope
screen,
that
a wheel
helps.
within a wheel. All right.
Okay. How's that
So,
text size?
oh, much better. Yeah, that's huge. I think that looks great. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, continuing on. So, okay, you're shopping for a competitor now. What's your shopping process like? What are the steps you're taking?
Yeah, the first thing I did was try to understand who the competitors even were. Because sometimes when you go to Amazon, you see all of these names and you don't know if any of them are real brands uh, or where these companies are from. So I did some Googling first to ask who are competitors to the brand we had, which was EcoFlow, because we are increasingly unhappy with EcoFlow. So I didn't want to replace the EcoFlow with another one. The Google results told me I should look into a company called Jackery. Jackery. I hadn't heard of them before. I hadn't seen their stuff on Amazon. They were new to me. There were a couple of review articles that looked promising. People seemed to like the Jackery product, um, but I'd never heard of them before, so I wasn't too sure. Um, and then I read a couple of other articles who said, well, the Jackery is good, but the Bluetti is even better. Because of, and then I saw a couple of Reddits that said, oh yeah, Bluetti is even better than EcoFlow and Jackery. So I'm all over the place. So the next step of my process, after some Googling and some articles and some Reddit, was I actually sent a customer support email to both Jackery and Bluetti. And I basically said, here's what just happened with my EcoFlow. And the manufacturer didn't seem to care that the product overheated. If I had your product and it was just outside of the warranty period, but it overheated because it was faulty, would you have covered it or would you have told me, too bad? And I got a reply almost immediately from Jackery, which was really nice. Very friendly person. And so I wrote back and said, hey, can I ask where you're based? And they said Bulgaria. So, like, they're down the road from me. And so then I checked prices and specs. And I found that while both companies had models that were close to what I was replacing, um, the Bluetti seemed to have better Amazon reviews and was much less money. And so my thought was, okay, this seems to be a company where articles are saying nice things, people on Reddit are saying nice things, Amazon reviews, I usually don't totally trust. But yeah, so even though Bluetti wrote me back a day or two later, that still wasn't too bad. And I'd already bought it by then. So I'm having it shipped to our summer vacation, and I'll see the Bluetti in about 10 days.
So, what was your process of knowing what specs to look for?
Yeah, good question. So these batteries do have very specific specs that you have to look for. It's almost like someone shopping for a sofa. We have to take a look at how much power we want the battery to be able to push out, because we know that we want it to power both of our laptops at the same time. And then probably a couple of other things like power to laptops, charging phones, blah, blah, blah. So the EcoFlow we were replacing pushed 700 watts. So I think the Jackery had a 500 watt and the Bluetti had a 600 watt. So we checked that, and I'm saying we, but it was really me. And then we also wanted to check what kinds of ports and plugs that they had, since we have USB A's, USB C's, cigarette lighters, and regular wall plugs. So these were kind of
Um,
the key specs we were looking at. I didn't care as much about weight because I work out.
could you repeat what you said about the 700 watts again? Is that what
Yeah, the
you
EcoFlow we were
decided you need?
replacing. Yeah, the EcoFlow we were replacing was 700 watts. So we knew we had to have something relatively close to that. So, for example, it didn't make sense.
Okay.
We already knew a 300 watt was too little for us, because our camper came with a 300 watt, and we knew that wasn't enough. So we need to come closer to 700. So Jackery had a 500. I was worried that might be a little low, and Bluetti had a 600, and that's probably going to be good for us based on the power
Okay.
we draw.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
Um, so let's talk about trust. Um, how did you decide that? How did you just decide which company or item you could trust?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, both Jackery and Bluetti seem to have a lot of positive reviews. Trust was a little hard at first because I wasn't too sure who was a paid influencer. So many of these companies are paying people to be like, I built my tiny cabin on EcoFlow and it's the best, and here's my affiliate code. And then I'm like, oh, crap. Do they genuinely like this? Were they paid to say they like it? And so I get really messed up with influencers. Because I don't know who has scruples and who doesn't. So I tried to look for people who weren't influencers. So I found like what I thought were neutral reviews and people on Reddit who probably shouldn't have a horse in the race. But ultimately, both Jackery and Bluetti seemed like trustworthy choices, and it was down more to price and specs.
Okay. Um, how could you tell what review seemed more neutral? Were you just looking for not sponsored? How could you tell?
Yeah, it's always hard. Not everybody admits they're sponsored, but like I was looking, for example, the first review that came up in my Google search was CNET. You hope that CNET hasn't been bought. You hope that they are neutral, and so at least it gave the appearance of neutral. Sometimes these reviews link to Amazon links, but they'll link to an Amazon link of anything they're reviewing, even if they didn't like it. So you hope that that's neutral. So I'd say an example of like what seemed like a neutral review or article would be something like CNET.
Um, what did you mean by Amazon links?
Yeah, so sometimes even like a CNET article might be like, buy this product on Amazon. And so they have links to Amazon, but even though they're not an influencer, they might still have coded links where they get
Oh, like
something.
affiliate links
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to go back and just ask something. when you were emailing Jackery and Blue Eddy were about the EcoFlow situation, did you were you saying that the EcoFlow battery was outside of a return window or a warranty?
Yeah, I told them that the EcoFlow was just outside of warranty, which meant that even though the company agreed that it was overheated and so on, they weren't going to cover it or help me because it was just outside of warranty. So I was curious when if the manufacturer, like if I didn't cause the problem and the items fail safe didn't the items fail safe failed, would they cover it? I got a really interesting reply back from Blue Eddy. Let me see if I can find it. I'll just read you a little bit of it because it was so interesting. Um, our power station has over voltage protection, overload protection, over temperature protection, short circuit protection, low temperature protection, low voltage protection, over current protection, etc. So it sounded like they were very confident that this shouldn't happen to me. That, by the time Blue Eddy wrote me back, I'd already bought it. But I would have to say both companies sent me emails that made me feel good about them.
Okay, so Jackery and Blue Eddy both wrote back.
Yeah, Jackery made it. Blue Eddy listed all the protection they have, which implies we don't think this would happen to our unit. Jackery wrote back and said anything that's out of warranty we take on a case by case basis, so we can't tell you exactly what we would do in your situation. And I said, my thought was, okay, that's fair.
Okay, and scene.
And scene.
I
All
think I'm
right,
good.
so unshare your
That
screen so
was tough.
unshare your screen so
Yes.
people see you again. Okay, great.
Hello, I'm back.
Great. So let's
Normally, I
talk.
would keep my camera up there just so I
Of
make sure I can
course.
keep looking at my notes and the person so that they're close together. I don't look like I'm doing this.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, but it's just because of my vMix setup that
right.
we can't get your camera and your screen at the same time. When you share your screen, it acts like your camera. I'm going to read a couple of the comments that came up from our chat room while this was happening. Andre said, "This is where I'm usually thinking, okay, I'm going to go back and rewatch all this. LOL." Ana Lucia said, same. Melanie said, it would be great having some way to automatically insert a timestamp and then add contextual notes for important responses or topic at that point in the interview. Ana Lucia said, if you're in person, you can have a clock behind the interviewee and check the time to timestamp it in your notes. Melanie L said, there must be a widget for Excel that can do that. And that's one of my note-taking strategies that I wanted to remind people was that yes, if you hear that someone is saying something important and you don't want to take some of the longer form notes like Kelene did, you can definitely just write down timestamps. For example, right now where I live, it's 11:39 p.m. And if Kayleen knows that our interview started at, let's say, 11:30 p.m., then she can write, 11:34 compares competitors. And then she can go back into the transcript or the video 4 minutes in and find or search by some of those words and find it. So again, you don't have to take some of the long form notes she was taking. You can take some shorter reminders. That's another thing I will do. You saw me taking long form notes, but sometimes I'll write down 3 words that the person said in a row and I'll put them in quotes, and that's a reminder for me to go to the video or transcript later and find those 3 words in a row, and then I can reread the transcript and get the larger quote or information. Kayleen, anything to add to that style of note taking?
Yeah, I don't have much to add about Excel itself. I was going to say two things about note taking in general. Number one, I did use like parentheses, question mark, parentheses to remind myself, like, I missed that. I need to ask that again just to make sure I got that right. There might be, some spots where I might have taken notes that weren't quite correct or what Debbie was saying. So I try to make some kind of marking like that to remind myself, hey, Kelene, go back to the recording later. Um, yeah, I have never been very good at having the timestamp or getting that down quickly, just because Zoom's timestamp at the top right, that's your top right, it starts as soon as you start the meeting, which is usually 10 minutes before the actual session starts, and then sometimes it's not 10 minutes, it's 15 or 7. So I find that I lose focus and time every time whenever I try to find the correct timestamp. So I tend not to do it. What was the other thing? Oh, it's just for the next demonstration when I use Miro and Zoom, the transcript is really good for catching those, oh, I missed a word and I'm not totally sure exactly what the participant said. You can just look at the transcript and have that insurance policy of okay, I misheard them, or okay, I didn't mishear them. So you just enable captions and then go, and we'll show you in a second. Actually, I don't know why I'm explaining it verbally now. I have lost your audio, Deb. While she fixes that, I will try to MC.
Hello, do you hear
Although
my
I
audio
oh,
now?
yes.
Okay, I think this was because I joined your Zoom, and that's probably grabbing my microphone.
Ah, okay.
So, because the next thing we're gonna do is Kaylene's gonna share her screen again. She's gonna show you how she sets up to take notes in Miro while we're in a Zoom call. So this is going to get a little meta. Not the company, the adjective. While we do that. So, Kelene, do you want to share your screen and show people how you take some notes, how you're going to set up in Miro, and then we'll meet in Zoom and we'll act out our Zoom thing.
Yes. As soon as I figure out how to move my mirror to the right monitor, it's not letting me move to the next monitor. That is very strange. Because I need it on the monitor I'm sharing it on. Please hold. That has never happened before. Alright, I will restart it. Hopefully this doesn't take longer than a minute. Does anyone in the chat have a question in the meantime? Man, that is really weird. Oh, I think I figured it out. False alarm!
No problem.
Okay. Alright, screen share. Yes, that is correct. Alright,
Okay.
I'm going to make this bigger. We're going to keep zoom on the screen, so it can't be full screen. So in Miro, okay, some people might be wondering why not just use Excel. And the reason why I like using Miro is because if you take notes directly in here, you can basically jump straight into synthesis as soon as all the participants are done, or even when most of the participants are done. I'll explain this in a moment. So let's just do 3 participants. tag it P1, P2, wrong icon, P3. I don't know why there we go. Okay. Let's make that a little bigger. And the way it works is you have one sticky per participant, and then you make a frame, and then you have one question per frame. So now I'm going to copy the questions over. Because as you zoom out, you see how the frame title stays the same size. So I tend to not write the exact question, but I'll write trigger to shop for item. And that's just once you have like 20 questions, it can be really easy to find that question that you're taking notes for. And if this isn't making sense, it will once I start demonstrating. Shopping process. And usually I make a new frame for each like greater question, if that makes sense. If I have a lot of, make a whole new frame for that. Okay. And I only made 3 participants, but like if you have 20, you'll have 20 stickies per frame. Okay. For the purposes of this demonstration, let me make these into columns. Come on. Make that bigger. Okay, and now for the zoom part, this is what I was talking about in terms of transcription. I have to expand it all the way to find show captions. So you start the captions. I generally hide the closed captions at the bottom, and I do view full transcript. All right, I'm about to unmute myself in Zoom, Deb, so I might start hearing double.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now the transcription is being generated as the session goes on. And again, as you take notes and you might potentially miss something, this is where you can scroll up and check, did I mishear that word? And it can be especially useful when there's downtime in a session. Like, for example, the participant is trying to figure out how to share their screen. During times like that, it can be really useful to like catch up on your notes, and you can use the transcription that way. I'm gonna make it like that.
Okay, and just testing that my transcript is coming through as well.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to hide some of the chat room comments so they're not covering the Zoom transcript. And we'll answer people's questions and comments later so people can feel free to comment, and we'll address them after this example. And Kelene, I'll tell a little bit of a shorter story since we kind of have 10 minutes left, though we'll probably go a little late.
Okay. You are free to... Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Deb, what triggered you to shop for this item?
Yeah, we already had this item. It was made by EcoFlow, but unfortunately it got all faulty and it died when it was just outside of warranty. And even though it wasn't my fault, the company said they weren't going to fix it or replace it. So we decided to replace it with something from a competitor because we didn't want to give EcoFlow more money.
Got it. Got it. So how did you choose the competitor? What was your shopping process?
Yeah, the first thing we did was to Google who were the competitors because wasn't too familiar with the brands. And after Googling, I saw both some review articles as well as some Reddit discussions where people had similar questions. So I would say the early steps were to Google, check some reviews, read some Reddit conversations, just to be familiar with what brands did people seem to trust. After that, I went on Amazon to look at some pricing and some specs of different models to see what we wanted to, what our options were there. And I forgot there was a middle step. I also sent an email to the customer support people at the two top companies that people were talking about, just to see how their companies would handle a unit killing itself just outside of the warranty period.
Got it. Got it. And so, as you were looking at those competitors and looking on Amazon, reading articles, reading Reddit discussions, how did you decide what to trust?
Yeah, trust is hard because you never know who's a paid influencer. They're not always transparent. So I tried to check for anybody who didn't have a horse in the race. An article from a company that probably wasn't paid to say something like CNET. I thought CNET could probably be trusted. I thought the people on Reddit didn't seem like they were influencers. They seemed like real people who had tried one or more of these products. So Reddit seemed trustworthy. I don't trust Amazon reviews that much because I know that Amazon and sellers tend to get bad reviews removed. So, so I have to take Amazon reviews with a bit of a grain of salt.
Okay. And why did CNET seem trustworthy?
CNET seemed trustworthy because I don't think of them as a group that's paid to say good or bad things about a particular company. Even if they have some affiliate links, they'll have an affiliate link even for a product they hated. So I don't think just having an affiliate link makes you biased. So I think they've got affiliate links, but I don't think they're paid influencers, and so I hope their opinion is more neutral.
Okay. Yeah, I'm basically done.
Okay, and did you want to show how you do some of the copy and paste from the transcript?
So I don't always do that. I tend to do that if I really like the particular way a participant said something, or if I'm really behind. But in this case, I felt comfortable with the pace that I was taking notes, so I didn't feel the need to paste anything from the transcript. Now, when your session is done, you can hit Save Transcript, and it will generate a text file. So that can be helpful if you like referring to the transcript immediately after the meeting's over and you don't want to wait for the recording to process. But yeah, in this case, I didn't feel the need to, but sometimes it does happen. And you go ahead and do this for every participant. And this, again, the strength about doing this in Miro is like once you have a bunch of different answers, you can immediately start grouping stuff into themes.
And
So
I'm
yeah,
leaving the Zoom. Can you hear me,
I thought I
Kelene?
stopped. Now I've
Hello.
stopped. Hello.
You can hear me? Testing. Or maybe
Hello.
people can double hear me now. Okay, can you single hear me?
No?
Do people hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, super. So, let's talk about some pros and cons of that. And again, it's always better when Kayleen is just the moderator or just the note taker and not trying to juggle both. I think you're definitely going to be more efficient, better at your job when you're one and not both. I think that's going to be true for just about everybody. So, again, sorry everybody that we didn't have like a third person coming in here and playing the moderator and we're just taking notes. So, Kayleen, some pros and cons about the Miro and Zoom transcript version.
Uh, yeah, so pros, again, I think it's really helpful to jump into synthesis immediately. Um, you can make clusters in Miro. Um, I didn't demonstrate it, but you select multiple stickies and there's an option to cluster objects, and then you can create themes, and that can make report generation really, really helpful, especially if you're thinking visually and you just need to group stuff. In Excel, it's not quite the same, although you can easily copy the whole spreadsheet and then paste it into Miro as sticky notes. That is an option. Cons, I would say, would be looking for the correct frame to start typing the answer. That didn't may not have seemed difficult to navigate, but if you have 60 questions, it can be a little bit weird to like search for the correct frame, especially if the participant goes in many different directions and starts answering question 25 when you were on question 19.
Yeah, we've
Um,
definitely
yeah.
sometimes ended up doing some questions out of order because of something that just came up in conversation, and then our note takers had to be like, ooh, where are we? What are we talking about?
Someone whose name I cannot pronounce on LinkedIn said Miro's tags are great for clustering too. That is absolutely correct. It's
Yep,
absolutely true.
so true. Um, so let's see. Any other thoughts or questions from anybody before we wrap up? Ultimately, today we're not here to tell you what's the best way for you or the best way for us. We're just trying to show some different approaches where we have found a lot of pros to these versions. For me, if I have to I found that for me, trying to take notes in the spreadsheet or Miro felt like it added cognitive load. So if I'm someone else's note taker, I tend to default to the quasi transcription version. But that does mean that later on, I or someone on my team has to go through those notes and turn them, you copy paste them into Miro stickies and get them in the right place on the board. But then we have those frames on the board, and that way we already know that this particular note answers this question because we've been doing our this gets into analysis and synthesis, but we've been doing our Miro boards where we don't just throw stickies up there and go, I wonder what goes with what. We start with frames where all of the answers to a particular question, all the notes go there, and then we can start saying, are there subtopics or subthemes or other patterns we're seeing other than we got the answers to this question? Any comments or questions while we look at wrapping up, with special thanks to Kayleen for planning this and doing this and breakdancing? Um, yes. So while we wait to see if there's any other questions, Kayleen, if people are interested in talking to you or interviewing you or something, where can people find you?
Oh, thank you. I can be found on LinkedIn. That would be my. It would. my username on LinkedIn is just my first name and last name. So linkedin.com/in/Kelene Lee. And that
And I'm
has
just going to
links
spell
to
your name for
my.
people who aren't seeing it on the screen right now, since we do once in a
Ah,
while get people who either have visual issues or some people say, hey, I listen to you while I walk my dog. Kelene Lee is spelled Kelen, like Nancy, E. Last name Lee. Cool. Melanie says, thanks for this. You showed me a technique I'd never considered before. Yeah, we found that it definitely helps us go faster through analysis and synthesis when a lot of what just went on in the sessions is already up on the Miro board. So we'll still do some rewatching of stuff. We might still do some tagging and coding of transcripts, but I feel like we've done a little bit less of that now that we've been dumping so much into Miro. And then some of the coding and tagging is sometimes, not always, but sometimes to put together a clip reel or video highlights. So yeah, Andre says thanks. Learned a ton. Kiefer says thanks for sparking new ideas. Gonna try this for sure. Yay, we did it, Kayleen. We're changing the world. Yay! Oh, Kayleen's exploring the studio space. More cowbell. Um, all right, so I'm going to press the button that ends the show and puts lots of flames on the screen. So I will see those of you who are in our new mastermind and support group will be in Discord tomorrow having our weekly call. Don't forget. You can always check the events calendar for that. And if you're not in our super secret group, it's for people actively working in CX, UX, or product right now. You can check it out at cxcc.to/support-group and see if it's right for you. And if it is, just join. And then let's see, no show on Friday, and then Monday will be a webinar with David Snodgrass on diary studies. So again, check out the events calendar. Join us here live for diary studies. Get your questions ready. Kayleen, thank you again for being our special guest and doing wonderful interviews with me. I hope you find your dream sofa with all of your long-lasting foam.
Yes, one day, one day. Everybody, feel free to message on LinkedIn and just let me know if you try this method, especially the Miro method. Let me know how it goes.
Cool. Okay, well, good night from here. Thanks again, and bye bye.